All right, welcome everybody around the world. Welcome to all my subscribers. I'm going to try and keep this video as short as possible because I don't have a lot of time, and it's really just a short, simple message. So ignore the video I made the other day. It was ended up being 45 minutes. I rambled too much, so I deleted that video. But basically, the emphasis of what I wanted to relate today is that Jesus is not. It's not about don't make him complicated. It's that Jesus, the whole deal with Jesus is very simple, straightforward, and logical. There's nothing complex or complicated or dogmatic about it. What did Jesus come and do? What was his function, purpose, and all of that? It's very simple, straightforward, and sensible. Uh, like I cover in my systematic theology, I have a chapter on what did Jesus come to do, looking at all the verses that detail what he came to do. And about 2/3 of the verses that talk about what did Jesus come to do in the New Testament, about 2/3 of them say that he came to enlighten us. Okay, this goes back to the prophecy of Malachi, where it says that God would send Elijah and the Messiah to come turn the hearts of the people back to God before before he comes and utterly smites the land. So one of the primary roles of the Messiah was to teach and enlighten. And one simple way to look at Jesus is that's what he did. God is real, but we don't see him. God doesn't, tangibly interact with the earth. So it would make sense that if God is real, he would want us to know about him. And how could we know about God if he doesn't reveal himself? Yeah, over time, he revealed himself to prophets and this and that there and certain individuals. But on the vast whole, how could God get the whole world to know about him when the vast majority of the world was pagan? They didn't know the true one God and all of that and true wisdom. Well, the best thing for God to do in that instance is to send somebody to go and teach and enlighten the people. And this is what we got with Jesus, okay? And he really did teach the world. That's why about half the world's population as of this day believes in Jesus. 1/3 of the world's population is a follower of Jesus. And almost all of the paganism that existed on the planet for thousands of years has been eradicated through the efforts of Christianity, which stemmed from Jesus and everything he did. So if God was real, he would have sent somebody like Jesus to do something like Jesus did. So one of his primary roles and missions was to teach and enlighten. And what did Jesus do with that? Well, Jesus enlightened us. What I mean by that, Jesus enlightened everybody to the fact that there is one God and one God only, and that paganism is false. Jesus didn't necessarily verbally do away with ritual and sacrifice, but with what he gave us to keep and follow, it involves no ritual or sacrifice. So there's very little to no dogma in the Christianity that Jesus gave everybody. And just again, for reference, this is the original and true Christianity, my systematic theology. Because churches and denominations of Christianity have incorporated human dogma into Christianity and made their own versions of it. But I'm speaking about what the actual Christianity, what Jesus actually gave from God and all of that. It is very simple and straightforward. He taught us that there is one God. And like I said, paganism was basically eradicated off the planet. Jesus taught us that there is a life after death. He made it evident through his resurrection. This is something simple and straightforward. He didn't rely on doing magic and all sorts of things in order to convince people. Yeah, he did miracles of healing to benefit certain individuals. But even Jesus said, I shouldn't have to do these miracles to convince anybody. It's because you're also hard, you're so full of doubt that you don't want to believe anything. So Jesus didn't come to perform some magical mission or magical purpose or function. He didn't come to operate as a sacrifice. He wasn't the incarnation of God. He was the heavenly Son of God who had his own role and status with God up in the heavens before he incarnated down here on his mission. But what his mission wasn't a magical mission. It was a simple mission. He came here as a human like one of us to teach us about the one God, to teach Israel and the world of Gentiles that there's one God, that there is a life after death, that there is a judgment at the end of your life. You will be judged when you die. And if you're bad, you go to a bad place. If you're good, you go to a good place. All of this is very sensible, straightforward, and logical. If you're a good person, you will go to the good place. If you're a bad person, you will go to the bad place. He taught us how we can be saved at our judgment. He taught us how to be good people and what we should do. And everything that he taught was very sensible. There's no list of laws with Christianity as Jesus gave it. There's one law, which is to love, right? And if you love, then you'll fulfill all forms of righteousness. You will fulfill any form of law from God that exists if you're loving, and I would add to that, virtuous in all ways, right? So it's a very simple doctrine, right? What you have to do as a Christian is very simple. Stop doing what is bad and be good. It is so simple. The whole religion can be summed up like that. It's also important to reflect on that Jesus never gave us books. He never commanded us to write books. I'm not discounting the New Testament as something not necessary. I'm just saying Jesus did not give us books, tell us to write books. He allegedly gave the discourse of Revelation to John and told him to write that down. But that's different. That's about end days events. But in terms of the theology and everything, he never wrote stuff down. Why? Because he was making such simple, common sense, wise remarks about theology, theological remarks. They're so simple and sensible, they didn't need to be written down. They could be easily remembered and memorized. You don't need to have all this dogma about feeling that you shouldn't have to rely on, quoting this verse number and chapter number. And even though I had to do that methodically for my systematic theology to prove things to people who are so full of doubts, at the end of the day, you don't have to do that, because what his religion was, the religion and religious process that Jesus brought us from God, is one that is so simple. Like I said, there's no ritual. There's very little to no dogma at all. There's, in a sense, there's no set of laws to follow. Everything's just so simple and easy to understand. And that's why when at the day of Pentecost in the New Testament, and the disciples and the apostles were commissioned to go out to the world, the instruction was very simple to them. Jesus told them, God, the Holy Spirit told them, to go out and teach all men everywhere to reform. Why? Why would that statement represent the entirety of the gospel mission in the gospel theologically? Why? Because that's our instruction, our religious instruction on how to be saved, right? Because again, we needed our proof that God was real. Well, we got that with Jesus. We needed our proof that there's life after death. Well, we got that with Jesus. We needed our proof that God can make you better. He can heal you. He has power over nature. We got that with the miracles from Jesus. We needed proof that God is sensible and just and fair and righteous, and we got that with Jesus. Okay? God did not give us some huge, complex, dogmatic thing with Jesus. It's so simple. And that's really what everybody needs to do, because as a Christian or somebody who's not a Christian learning about it or thinking about it, it's very easy when you look at the churches and the denominations that exist in Christianity your mind will be obscured and clouded by all the dogma that's part of their doctrines and the form of operations and principles, right? But don't let that distract you away from the simplicity that is Jesus, okay? If Jesus had come here and been like, oh, here, write this book down, and gave us hundreds of laws to follow in a complex dogmatic process that involved ritual and all this, and if Jesus did come here, which he didn't, to function as some type of sacrifice so that we could be forgiven, all of that stuff would be so complex and dogmatic, and people would have to sit here and have theological debates on what to believe and this and that there, but we didn't get any of that with Jesus. We got, hey, stop being a bad person, start being a good person. If you do that, when you die, when you're judged, you will receive life after death, and you'll go on to a better place. It's so simple. You don't need to overcomplicate it. If somebody asks you, oh, but how can I be good, and what good things should I do? Be good in all ways. It's that simple, right? Or if somebody says, what bad things do I need to stop doing? It's whatever is bad, stop doing it. It's so simple. You shouldn't need a book for this. You know what I mean? And I just hope and wish that people would understand the simplicity in Jesus. And, the churches have really just portrayed it as some overly complex, dogmatic, and ritualistic thing that, for example, by the churches claiming that God had to incarnate as Jesus so that he could function as a blood sacrifice so that God could forgive us for the crimes that we commit. You need to explain all of those things with really complex dogma because none of those points make any logical sense. Okay? You would have to explain why would God have the need to die in order to forgive us. You'd have to explain why God, who is invisible and a spirit, would have to incarnate as a person. You'd have to explain why Jesus and God, Jesus was a human body, but that he's still God. You have so many points that don't make sense at face value. People just dogmatically accept because of cultural tradition. But all of these points are dogmatic and they require complex explanations, most of which the material needed to explain them cannot even be lifted from the pages of the Bible, but just from the minds of people, right? You compare that complex monstrosity that is mainstream Christianity to the simple truth in the true Christianity, which I have dubbed expiatory Unitarianism, and you will see a world of difference. It's like night and day difference. Expiatory Unitarianism, the approach is so simple. The understanding is so simple. Very, very simple. You look at the church Christianity, it's very, very complex, like I said. So, I have lots of free teachings you can watch on my channel. I spend lots of time doing those videos over years. Or you can get my systematic theology on Amazon. It's only like $23. And this has got everything in it. And even though, yes, you could argue, oh, this book full of verses and this and that there, this itself is complex or even dogmatic. Once you absorb the knowledge and you've gained the wisdom to understand it and you digested it, you won't need the book because it's just dead simple. It's dead simple. There's no point getting into arguments with people about, oh, you're saved by faith, not by law, and on all this headache nonsense. At the end of the day, if people are trying to bicker with you about stuff like that, just walk away from them. Just know that God is so simple and logical that he's real. He sent down his son to teach and enlighten us that we should be good people in order for us to be saved at our judgment. Very simple. Be good in all ways. Be loving in all ways. If you do that, you fulfill all law. Very, very simple. Don't worry about anything else that's dogmatic or ritualistic. There's absolutely no need for it. And I thank God for giving us somebody, this Messiah, who was that simple with such a simple message of enlightenment, because it's a better scenario than if we had a complex one. So anyways, take care, folks, and God bless.